So in this story, I'm gonna talk about my perm caths that I used when I transitioned from peritoneal dialysis at home to an in-center hemodialysis. When that happened, they took the catheter out of my belly and then a catheter in my chest was placed. And now all I knew about this form of treatment was that it was a lot more dangerous compared to what I was doing before. Because before, we were just using dialysate solution and there was no blood, no needles, nothing like that. But with this hemodialysis, now you're dealing with blood. After my kidney transplant failed, where my mother was my donor because of reoccurring FSGS, I was transitioned into peritoneal dialysis, which I did for about two and a half years, something like that. That form of treatment, I had a tube that was placed in my belly and I would do dialysis every single day for 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, right? As you can imagine, that was a lot to go through at that age. Fast forward, I got peritonitis one too many times. That's an infection that scars up that area where you're getting your blood cleaned, right? With that form of dialysis. So when that happened one too many times, doctors told me that we needed to let the gut rest. And in the meantime, we're gonna transition you into what is known as hemodialysis. Now, all I knew about this form of treatment was that it's a little bit more dangerous and that they're not gonna use the catheter that was in my belly. Now I have what is known as a perm cath that was placed right in my chest. And this was very dangerous because it was a direct port, an opening that went straight into my heart. And I just needed to be very careful with this. I wasn't able to take showers the way I did before. And I had to, when I did want to wash up, the way that I would do it is I would have to kneel down, put my head into the tub and wash my hair first or in the sink. And I would have like a handheld shower that I would wash the rest of my body. Or if I used the other bathroom, I would just turn my back and make sure that this part didn't get wet, right? And I would just, take care of my business. But for about 2 to 3 years, that's how I lived my life. And I remember when I first was able to get that taken out, and mind you, I had 2 placed. We'll get into that, why that was, but I just remember taking a hot shower for the first time, and you never know the little things in life, how happy they can make you. Just feeling hot water hit my neck and hit my head and the rest of my body. Oh, I was in heaven for a little bit, right? But that was the reality of my life at that time. Now really telling me that they want to have the surgery done where they want to put a fistula in one of my arms because they don't feel comfortable anymore with the catheter in my chest. And I kind of fought that for the longest time because I always thought that I was going to be going back home to do peritoneal dialysis. Because mind you, doctors told me that all they needed to do was let my gut rest. But I guess it was too scarred up. We really don't know because we never revisited that. After I was sent in center, I pretty much stayed in there. But yeah, after 2-3 years in, I remember doctors telling me, you know what, Marcelo, we need to take the catheter out because it's common, or it's not that it's common, but it's a possibility that you can get an infection. And if you get an infection, it can be very dangerous. It can kill you. And they just kept telling me this, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to have that bumpy arm. I was terrified of all of that. And no one really wants to deal with big old needles, right? Because once you have a fistula or a graft, then the reality is you're gonna have to learn how to self-cannulate or have a nurse or a tech put those needles in to access your blood. And I didn't want that. I really didn't. I was only 17, 18, 19 years old around then. And I didn't want to have to go through that. So I tried to keep that catheter in my chest as long as I could, even though I didn't like it. I didn't like how itchy it was. And how it bothered me having tubes hanging from my body. I never enjoyed tubes hanging from my body. You don't feel and look sexy. But one day it happened. I got an infection. And I remember I became septic. I was so sick, throwing up. I was in the hospital for like a week, getting pumped full of antibiotics and just having to deal with all that mess and craziness. And it was rough. It was rough to go through. I don't recommend it for anyone. So if you're someone that is hesitant towards getting a fistula or a graft, I mean, if that's your only choice and you have no other options, then, I mean, by all means, that's all you have. But if you do have a choice, now that I do have a fistula and I've had it for more than 15 years, that's what I would recommend. But when this got infected, I remember they had to clean that out and actually take it out of me. And thank God I was asleep when they did all of that, right? They put me to sleep through anesthesia. But afterwards, because I didn't have a fistula yet, they had to place another catheter in my right side. And this tube actually went all the way around my neck, like a catheter necklace, is what I like to say. And it went around my neck, my spinal cord, through the back, into my heart. We went through the whole process of having a fistula placed right here in my right arm. And I've had this fistula for more than 15 years, like I said. Over the years, I stuck it with sharp needles because that's usually the way you start. I tried to develop a buttonhole site, and sometimes I did get it and sometimes I didn't get it. It took a while for me to develop these two holes that you see right there. It looks like I got bit by a vampire. Because of these two holes, this is where I access my blood every single time when I use my buttonhole needles. The needle is dull, but look how big that is. You want to compare it to a pen. It's huge. So this goes right inside. All I do is take the scab off with the scab remover. It's a tip that you get with these needles. I don't have to worry about sticking anywhere else. My needle just slides right in, right? But that is because I created this buttonhole needle site. Before, my arm got huge because I was sticking it with sharp needles, and over time it got infiltrated a few times. And for people that have not experienced infiltration, I don't wish that on anybody. It was so painful when it happened to me the first time that my arm, my light went out. Sorry about that. Let there be light. But my arm infiltrated, it was swollen. That means that the blood was leaking out of the fistula, and it was very painful and black and blue. It bruised up all the way from my hand to my neck. And when that happened, they had to go to my chest catheter. They had to go use it again while this was healing. But like I said, as time went on, I decided to learn how to stick myself. And when I got over that fear and that hurdle, I never had any issues with my fistula. Never had any blood clots, no problems. However, again, in the beginning, like I said, when I was sticking with sharp needles on this part of it, it got very big, super big, to the point where on my request with my surgeon, thank God, shout out to one of the best surgeons here in Charlotte, North Carolina, Dr. Burgess. But I asked him, it was a request from me, can we revise this? I don't like the way that it looks. And I know in the future, if it keeps getting bigger, we're going to need to do it anyway. I don't recommend it, but if you want to, we'll do it. And, we did it. I have some pictures and some images of that time. Going back to what I said before, when it comes to choosing how to access your blood, now that I look back at everything that I've been through, my regular fistula that I have that is naturally part of my body, like I said, Never had any problems with it, never had any issues. And I thank God, knock on wood, knock on metal, knock on the phone, knock on everything, that I have it and it's working perfect. And I love it, right? Because I do know that now that I've been using those blunt needles, that my arm hasn't got irritated and big the way that it usually does long term with dialysis patients. So if you're someone that is scared of those needles, if you're terrified of, having a fistula or having a graft, it's not as scary as you think. And it's better than having tubes hanging from your body, right? And if you're anything like me, that loves the water, loves the ocean and waterfalls. I mean, I'm over here in North Carolina, only 3 hours away from Charleston, the beach, Hilton Head Island. Florida is down the street, and only an hour away from waterfalls and swimming holes. I wouldn't change it for the world, right? I'm able to experience life and live life the way that I choose to, doing my treatments at home with home hemodialysis. Once I learned how to stick myself, and again, being accountable, being responsible for your health, your wellness, that is the key to life. That is the key to taking your life back and feeling like you're in control. So don't fear it. Get over that. Whatever you're thinking, whatever is in your way, because a lot of the times we get in our own way. And I'm telling you, you can do more than you know, more than you think, and live a better life, right? I understand that home hemodialysis or PD isn't for everyone, but you can also learn how to do self-care while you're in center. Don't put all the work on your techs and on your nurses. Take on some of the slack, right? Help them push the boat, help them push that weight. And I'm telling you, everything in your life will get better the more you take on, the more responsibility you take on.